Tonight, scientists are seeing lower water levels in the Great Lakes, a change from these images of homes disappearing into the water after we saw high levels just a couple of years ago.
We're no longer near where we were for record levels that were causing all the erosion.
Lake Titicaca holds the distinction of being the world's highest large navigable lake, resting at an elevation of 3,812 meters above sea level. It stretches across the vast Altiplano Plateau in the central Andes, forming a natural border between Peru and Bolivia. Covering roughly 8,372 square kilometers, the lake extends for nearly 190 kilometers, while its deepest point plunges to around 281 meters, or approximately 922 feet. For over 10,000 years, this remarkable body of water has been at the heart of human life, culture, and civilization in the Andes. Before we uncover what shocked archaeologists, take a second to subscribe, because the world's greatest mysteries are still waiting to be discovered. But toward the end of 2023, something alarming began to happen. As 2024 unfolded, Lake Titicaca's water level continued to decline. A powerful El Niño event, combined with unusually low rainfall across the Andean Altiplano and increased evaporation caused by the region's high altitude, pushed the lake toward one of the lowest levels seen in decades. Satellite observations and water level gauges showed conditions approaching the historic record low first documented in 1996. The consequences quickly became impossible to ignore. Boats that had floated on the lake for years were suddenly stranded on cracked, muddy shorelines. Fish populations suffered as the shallow waters shrank. Vast beds of totora reeds, essential to local communities for fishing, construction, and even building homes, began to wither. For the Uru people, who live on remarkable floating islands crafted entirely from these reeds on the Peruvian side of the lake, the falling water threatened a way of life that has endured for generations. Yet this story is actually made up of two separate realities. Both are true, but they are often confused as if they were the same event. One story concerns what a joint Belgian-Bolivian underwater archaeological team recovered from submerged reefs near the island of the Sun, and what those remarkable discoveries reveal about the civilization that placed them there centuries ago. The other is the modern drought of 2023 and 2024, and the growing danger it poses, not only to the people who depend on the lake today, but also to the priceless archaeological heritage hidden beneath its waters. Understanding the difference between these two stories is crucial, because the truth is even more significant than the simplified version that has circulated in many reports. The first story is the drought itself. This is a recent, well-documented environmental crisis. It has severely impacted fishing villages, farming communities, and especially the Uru, whose floating reed islands can only survive if the lake maintains healthy water levels. The drought is the major news event that drew global attention to Lake Titicaca throughout 2023 and 2024. The second story lies beneath the surface. Hidden below the waters of Lake Titicaca is one of the most extraordinary collections of submerged pre-Columbian archaeological sites anywhere in the Americas. Archaeologists have recovered gold objects, finely crafted ceramics, ritual offerings, sacrificed animals, and traces of ancient ceremonial activity, evidence left behind by a civilization that regarded the lake itself as sacred more than 1,000 years ago. However, these discoveries were not revealed by the recent drought. Contrary to many popular claims, the famous artifacts beneath Lake Titicaca did not appear because the water level dropped. They were recovered through years of carefully planned underwater archaeological expeditions carried out by professional divers working at significant depths. The gold offerings, the puma-shaped incense burners, the sacrificed llamas. Every one of these remarkable finds was deliberately excavated beneath the lake, not exposed by receding shorelines. Ironically, the drought isn't uncovering these treasures, it's putting them at risk. Changing water conditions threaten the fragile environment that has protected these archaeological remains for more than a millennium. Scientific studies published in peer-reviewed research make this distinction clear, even though many media reports have blurred the line between discovery and environmental crisis. The accurate story is far more compelling. Researchers uncovered an ancient Tiwanaku ceremonial world resting beneath Lake Titicaca through underwater archaeology, while today's falling water levels now threaten both that submerged cultural heritage and the communities still living around the lake. That is the real story, and it carries far greater significance than the simplified narrative of a drought revealing hidden treasure, because it links the lake's ancient past with the environmental challenges it faces today. The civilization most closely connected with these underwater discoveries is the Tiwanaku, sometimes written as Tiwanaku. This powerful pre-Columbian society flourished along the southern shores of Lake Titicaca in what is now modern-day Bolivia, between roughly AD 500 and AD 1000. Long before the rise of the Inca Empire, the Tiwanaku had already built one of the Andes' most influential civilizations, reaching their peak centuries before the Inca emerged as the dominant power in the region. At the height of its influence, the Tiwanaku civilization ranked among the most advanced societies in the pre-Columbian Americas. It was renowned for its monumental stone architecture, sophisticated farming techniques, extensive trade routes, and a deeply rooted spiritual tradition in which Lake Titicaca occupied the center of the universe. For the Tiwanaku, the lake was far more than a natural landmark. It was the foundation of their religious worldview. Even after their civilization declined, the Inca inherited this belief, continuing to regard the lake as one of the holiest places in the Andes. According to ancient Andean traditions, Lake Titicaca was believed to be the birthplace of civilization itself. On the Bolivian side of the lake lies the Island of the Sun, a place that Inca mythology identifies as the birthplace of the sun god and the location where the first Inca ruler emerged. In this belief system, the lake was not simply a body of water. It represented the very beginning of creation, the spiritual heart of the Andean world. Because of this sacred status, both the Tiwanaku and later the Inca used the lake as a place of ceremonial worship. The objects resting beneath its waters were never discarded as rubbish. They were intentionally placed there as offerings to honor the sacred lake. Precious artifacts, sacrificed animals, and ceremonial objects were carefully deposited into the water during elaborate religious rituals supported by the state. These offerings symbolized communication with the divine, expressions of devotion, and demonstrations of the political and spiritual authority of the Tiwanaku rulers. The most comprehensive scientific study of these underwater offerings was led by Christophe Dallaire, an underwater archaeologist from the Université Libre de Bruxelles. Between 2013 and 2019, Dallaire and an international research team carried out a series of systematic underwater excavations in Lake Titicaca. Their work focused on a submerged ceremonial site near the Island of the Sun, known as Koa Reef. The reef proved to be one of the most significant ritual locations ever discovered beneath the lake. The team's findings were published in 2019 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, PNAS. The study was co-authored by Jose Capriles of Penn State University and veteran archaeologist Charles Stanish, whose decades of research have helped shape modern understanding of the Tiwanaku civilization and the Titikaka Basin. Today, this publication remains one of the leading scientific references on Lake Titicaca's submerged archaeological heritage. What the archaeologists uncovered at Koa Reef was both remarkable and carefully documented. The underwater excavations uncovered an extraordinary collection of Tiwanaku ceremonial offerings. Among the discoveries were gold medallions, blue stone ornaments made from lapis lazuli and sodalite, and beautifully crafted puma-shaped ceramic incense burners, symbols of power and spirituality in Andean culture. Archaeologists also found the remains of ritually sacrificed juvenile llamas placed alongside these valuable objects. Together, the discoveries revealed that the site was not a collection of lost possessions, but a carefully prepared sacred offering made more than 1,000 years ago. The combination of gold, precious stones, ceremonial vessels, and animal sacrifices provides powerful evidence of a highly organized state religion centered on the sacred waters of Lake Titicaca. The 2019 PNAS study concluded that these deposits were intentionally placed in the lake by the Tiwanaku state as part of official religious ceremonies. This distinction is crucial. These offerings were not simply private expressions of faith. They represented state-sponsored rituals designed to reinforce both spiritual belief and political power. By presenting valuable gifts to the sacred waters, Tiwanaku rulers demonstrated their privileged relationship with the divine, displayed their control over precious resources, and reinforced their role as intermediaries between the human and spiritual worlds. In this sense, the gold objects, puma vessels, and sacrificed llamas carried a dual purpose. They were acts of worship, but they also served as powerful political statements that helped strengthen and legitimize the authority of the Tiwanaku civilization. The story preserved beneath Lake Titicaca is not built on legend or speculation. It rests on years of scientific research, peer-reviewed evidence, and one of the most comprehensive underwater archaeological projects ever carried out in the Andes. Published in PNAS, the results of 6 years of meticulous fieldwork by an international team reveal with remarkable clarity how the Tiwanaku civilization used its sacred lake not only as a place of worship, but also as a foundation for state power. Yet there is another chapter to this underwater mystery, one that is far more controversial. In 2000, the Italian exploration organization Archaeological Geographical Exploring launched a major expedition to investigate the waters surrounding the island of the Sun. Over the course of the mission, divers completed more than 200 underwater dives, examining large sections of the lake bed. Their findings attracted worldwide attention. The team reported discovering submerged terraces, an underwater stone wall stretching for nearly 800 meters, and several other stone structures resting beneath the lake. News reports quickly described the discoveries as the remains of a lost temple, while some even claimed an entire sunken ancient city had been found beneath Lake Titicaca. The scientific reality, however, is more nuanced. The expedition genuinely documented underwater terraces, long stone walls, and other man-made features. These observations form part of the archaeological record, but exactly what those structures represent, when they were built, and whether they truly belonged to a ceremonial complex remains subjects of ongoing debate among archaeologists. Several researchers suggest that some of the stone features were once ordinary shoreline constructions that gradually became submerged as the lake's water level rose over many centuries. Others believe certain formations may actually be ancient agricultural terraces rather than monumental architecture. In other words, while the discoveries themselves are real, the dramatic claims surrounding them often extend beyond what the available evidence can confidently support. The structures deserve serious investigation, but describing them as a lost underwater city goes further than current archaeological evidence allows. Although these discoveries were recorded and discussed within academic research, no large-scale follow-up expedition was ever carried out to fully resolve the questions they raised. To understand why archaeological remains exist beneath Lake Titicaca at all, it's necessary to understand the lake itself. Its water level has never remained constant. Over thousands of years, natural climate cycles have repeatedly caused the lake to rise and fall. During periods when water levels were significantly lower, land that now lies underwater was once completely exposed. People lived there. They built homes, terraces, walls, ceremonial sites, and agricultural landscapes on dry ground. Later, as climate conditions changed and the lake gradually expanded, those same settlements disappeared beneath the rising water. That is why archaeologists continue to find structures beneath Lake Titicaca today. They were not constructed underwater. They were built on land that nature slowly reclaimed. These long-term fluctuations have repeatedly submerged and exposed different parts of the shoreline, creating the complex underwater archaeological landscape that researchers continue to explore. Interestingly, this same environmental cycle may also explain the fall of the Tiwanaku civilization itself. Historians believe the civilization entered a period of decline between roughly AD 1000 and AD 1100. Many researchers associate this collapse with an extended regional drought that dramatically reduced rainfall, lowered Lake Titicaca's water level, and disrupted the agricultural systems that sustained the state. The Tiwanaku had developed one of the most sophisticated farming techniques in the ancient Andes, a raised field system known in the Aymara language as sucacolos. Instead of planting directly on the ground, farmers built elevated planting platforms separated by canals filled with water. This ingenious design served several purposes at once. The water stored heat during the day and released it at night, protecting crops from the harsh frosts common across the high-altitude Altiplano. It supplied irrigation throughout the growing season. It also recycled nutrients back into the soil, helping maintain long-term fertility. Thanks to this advanced engineering, the Tiwanaku supported a large population in an environment that would otherwise have been extremely difficult for agriculture. But when prolonged drought reduced the lake's water level, the entire system began to fail. The canals dried. The raised fields lost their protective water supply. Agricultural productivity declined, weakening the economic foundation on which the Tiwanaku state depended. Even today, the ancient sucacolos farming system can still be seen when Lake Titicaca's waters recede, a lasting reminder of the remarkable engineering skills of the Tiwanaku civilization. History now seems to be repeating itself. Many researchers believe that prolonged drought helped weaken the Tiwanaku over 1,000 years ago. Today, the 2023 to 2024 drought has once again pushed Lake Titicaca toward historic low levels, exposing shorelines, stranding boats, reducing fish populations, and drying the vital totora reeds. No one has felt the impact more than the Uru people, whose famous floating islands, homes, and boats all depend on these reeds. As the reed beds disappear, so does a way of life that has survived for centuries. The drought has also created a new threat to archaeology. It did not reveal the lake's famous treasures. Those were recovered years earlier by underwater archaeologists. Instead, lower water levels are putting ancient underwater sites at greater risk of damage, erosion, and looting. To help protect this priceless heritage, Bolivia has expanded underwater archaeological research and announced plans for a museum near the Island of the Sun to display many of the remarkable discoveries. The real story isn't about hidden treasure emerging from the water. It's about a sacred lake whose past and present are both under threat. Preserving one of South America's greatest ancient civilizations while struggling to protect the people who still depend on it today. Although Bolivia has been landlocked since the late 19th century, it still maintains a navy on Lake Titicaca. Beyond its ceremonial and training roles, the Bolivian Navy has also assisted scientists and archaeologists during underwater surveys, recovery missions, and heritage protection projects, playing an unexpected but important role in preserving one of South America's greatest archaeological treasures. Lake Titicaca is one of the world's richest archaeological sites and is listed on UNESCO's tentative World Heritage List. While droughts occasionally reveal pottery and ancient structures along its shoreline, the lake's most extraordinary discoveries were not exposed by falling water. Instead, between 2010 and 2019, trained underwater archaeologists recovered gold artifacts, ceremonial vessels, gemstones, and sacrificed llamas from deep beneath the lake after years of scientific diving. These remarkable finds reveal that the Tiwanaku civilization regarded Lake Titicaca as a sacred place where valuable offerings were made over 1,000 years ago. Claims linking the lake to the lost city of Atlantis have been rejected by mainstream archaeology. The real history of Lake Titicaca is already extraordinary, without mythical explanations. Today, however, the lake faces a new threat. The severe 2023 to 2024 drought has lowered water levels, endangering local communities, wildlife, and the fragile underwater archaeological sites that have remained preserved for centuries. Ironically, the same lake that protected the Tiwanaku's sacred treasures for over 1,000 years is now under pressure from the very climate changes that may once have contributed to the civilization's decline, connecting the ancient past with the challenges of the present. Lake Titicaca has connected human history for thousands of years. It sustained the Tiwanaku civilization, supported the famous Uros floating reed islands, and preserved countless sacred offerings beneath its waters. Contrary to popular claims, the recent drought did not expose ancient gold. Those treasures, including gold medallions, puma-shaped incense burners, gemstones, and sacrificed llamas, were recovered by professional underwater archaeologists during years of scientific diving and published in 2019. The real concern is today's climate crisis. During the 2023 to 2024 drought, Lake Titicaca dropped toward historic low levels, damaging reed beds, harming fisheries, stranding boats, and threatening the communities that depend on the lake for survival. The greatest danger isn't a hidden treasure, it's the future of the lake itself. The same sacred waters that preserved over 1,000 years of history are now under environmental pressure, putting both its priceless underwater heritage and the people who still call its shores home at risk. In many ways, Lake Titicaca is preserving the past while sustaining the present. And today, both are being threatened by the same kind of climate stress that may have contributed to the fall of the Tiwanaku civilization centuries ago.